Hi there, this is Steve, or SabGuy SPG, if you may know me on RCG. And what I have here is, I'm just going to start. This will be the first of video series for the Zero UAV fixed wing autopilot system. And I'm just going to briefly go over some of the major points here for the first video, and just a general introduction. So what you can see here, we've got the main controller, this box here. I know it looks drastically large, and honestly it is definitely big when you compare it to the other systems out there, but I don't mind the size so much because I've got a lot of room in my Skywalker, and this unit is meant for a larger UAV. I'm going to hold it away a little bit because this really makes it look large. So what I'll do is I'm just going to throw it on the scale here, and just to give you an idea of the weight. This is without the RC cables, but it does have the cables connected to the receiver. So this will be including my receiver weight here. Not sure if you can see that, but it says 192 grams. So you're looking at around 200 grams for this unit. Size-wise, yeah, it fits in the Skywalker. If you just put it right there, I've closed both halves. They close just fine. Actually works out quite nicely, because what you can do is put your battery packs right in the nose now. I tend to usually trim this off a bit, and it'll move the pack forward. But it fits, so I'm not going to worry too much about the size. The weight is actually pretty reasonable, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Well, hopefully the performance will make up for it. So let's just look at the major components here. What comes in the kit is this black box. You also get a GPS. GPS is a very long cable on it, so you'll be able to put it pretty much anywhere. If you are adapted at forget that in focus, crimping these yourself, you could shorten the cable. I'm not too worried about it. Skywalker can handle a little extra cable. It also comes with all of these servo wires, which I've unplugged just to make this display a little bit more easy to understand. So let's look at the interface. So what you have at this end, if I can get this to focus properly, so all these blue cables coming out of here are signals from your RC receiver. So as you can see, this is a Thomas long range receiver. We've got all the servo wires coming out. I've just taped them down to keep them out of the way, and they go into the autopilot there. So that's straightforward. What we have here is the pitot tube inlet, so you'd connect a soft or hard rubber hose depending on how you like to run your lines through your airplane, and bring that out the front of the plane. This is where the GPS connects onto. Then we have at the bottom here, we have a bunch of connections, which are all the autopilot outputs. You can see that this guy here has just a red and a black. I left that one hooked up on purpose so that you can see that what happens is you apply power to this, it will apply power to the autopilot, and in turn power will come out, and you can see a red wire here, and it'll power your receiver. So you don't need a BEC for your own receiver, and in fact they recommend that you don't use your own BEC for your receiver. However, there is a separate power supply required for the servo outputs, and that is a good thing, because you want to always run your servos off a separate power source than your autopilot. If a servo binds or anything like that happens, you still want the autopilot to be alive, and your servos, you want them powered separately in case if it burns out, like say a servo burns out or you've got some major problems, you still want the autopilot functioning. So one of these connections along the bottom is where you will apply power from an external BEC or a separate receiver battery, however you wish to do it. Let's see. I suppose we could go through each one of these individually, but I'll just give a brief overview. So this has 8 channels input from your receiver. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe are. So the inputs go 1 aileron, 2 throttle, 1 aileron, 2 elevator, 3 throttle, 4 rudder, 5 is your working modes. These are all these channels here. 6 is reserved for future, 7 is your parachute output, and 8 again is reserved for future. So that's all of these connections along here. It's all outlined in the manual. The outputs, which are a whole bunch more down here, if you can see them. There we go. These outputs down here. I'll just quickly run through them. They're from right to left. And their functions are aileron output, elevator output, throttle output, rudder output, gimbal pan, and gimbal tilt, parachute output. Then we go on to channel 8 is a task, so depending on what you have your ground control system set up to perform, what task you have it perform. 9 is reserved, 10 is reserved, 11 is a snapshot output, 12 is an RPM input. That would be for a gas motor, meant to monitor your RPM on a gasoline engine. 13 is your data transmission and reception, so that's for your modem to be connected to. I requested this unit be shipped with TTL firmware uploaded, so I just hook up any XB Pro module to this and it will work. Make sure that you specify if you want TTL or is it RS-232 is the other kind you can get. Anyway, I don't use those. I only use the TTL because I really like the XBs. They're cheap and they work great. 14 is the parachute output, and so of course you'll notice that you've only got 8 inputs and up to 14 outputs. Well, some of these outputs are controlled by the ground control software, so that you would have to all set up in the ground control software. So I think we've gone through all the connections. These 2 gold things are just bolts. I know it's out of focus, but those are just 2 bolts holding the board inside. And yep, that's about it. Now, how to orient this in your craft. There's 2 ways to do this. You can either orient it this way. As you can see, all the cables are to the back. You cannot do it this way. Cables to the front is a no-no. Cables must either go to the back or to the side of the plane. Now I'm just going to quickly look up which side they're meant to go to. Bear with me. To the left side. So if this were to go in this airplane, these cables would go to the left, like this. So obviously this isn't going to work so well in the Skywalker, unless you want it sticking out the side of your plane. So I will be opting for cables to the rear of the plane, just a little bit of Velcro, stick my receiver there. I'll probably install this with some Velcro. As you can see, I've outlined the place where it'll sit inside the Skywalker. It does fit in between the 2 halves of the Skywalker without issues. So that's pretty much the general layout of how to put this in your plane. Now you'll have your pitot tube sensors at the back, so you're going to have to just bend that tube around and bring it out the front. Bring it out far enough that the leading edge of your wing or anything in the front is not impeding any of the airflow. GPS, of course, that can go anywhere. It's going to just keep it as far away from your video transmitter as possible. So I'm considering going way back on the tail, but this might be a little heavy for that. So I'll probably put it right here where the video transmitter is meant to go, and I'll probably put my video transmitter somewhere up front. Anyway, that's all easy to figure out later. I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea what the Zero UAV system is like right now. I'm hoping, and I believe that Yin has told me that they're working on a new case. Hopefully it'll be smaller and lighter, but Obviously the power in this is really the ground control software and the abilities of the autopilot, not so much the size. And just to recap, it was 192 grams for this, including my receiver. So not heavy, but big. Alright, so that's part one, and I'll start hooking up some wires for part